Thanks, Tony. Australia has one of the highest rates of sexual abuse in the world. Given the clear causal links between pornography and sexual assault, why is the federal government shelving the proposed internet filtering of pornographic material? And why must our women and children continue to suffer due to the exploitation of mainly men's sexuality, especially as we now have a female Prime Minister? Shouldn't she get in and say, no, I'm going to protect our women and children?
Let's hear first from Felicity Hample.
I'm not sure we've got a higher rate of sexual abuse in this country than in other countries. I think one of the things we can be proud of is that the changes to our laws and procedures around the country have meant that more people feel more confident about coming forward and having their complaints respectfully treated by police, by medical people who have to examine them, and by the lawyers and the courts who deal with them. So I think, in fact, it's a positive thing that more people feel confidence in the system.
What about this other half of the question, which is about a causal link between pornogaphy and sexual assault?
It's not prevention. I'm talking about prevention.
Yes, I understand that, but I just wanted to deal with that part of it first. There probably is, on the information that I know, there probably is a causal link between pornography and sexual abuse. There certainly is, so far as the abuse of the children who are the subject of the pornographic product that comes into this country. There probably is too in terms of people acting out what they see with other innocent victims. My concern is this: I'm not sure that the filter is actually effective. I think that whilst we do need to make sure that we stop pornography becoming licensed, people thinking it's okay to do, okay to watch, and that we make sure we do protect children, we've got to be careful that we don't fall into the trap of thinking a net filter will make us safe, because it won't necessarily make our children safe.
Things.
It will help if it's effective, and what I've
all right, let's hear from let's hear from John Elliott on this. And
I agree with the question. I mean, I think it's a shocking problem, and you see the problems of the Catholic Church that have been unfolding for the last couple of years. I mean, it's just outrageous in my view. And I'm very worried about the internet. Not that I use it, because I find it quite difficult. I have a secretary that does all my internet work. I don't want to become a secretary. I'd sooner spend the time thinking. But I agree with the gentleman. We ought to be putting everything we can in place, the filters and everything, to stop this stuff being exposed to all parts of our community.
Let's go to Scott Ludlam, because you're against the filter. How do you respond to this question?
Look, in a sense, the government hasn't shelved it, and I actually genuinely wish that they had. They've put it off while they re-examine the way our classification system works in Australia. And the reason, the answer that I'd give you to your question, I suppose, is that the filter's not going to work, and that's one of the reasons they've put it off. It's not broadly enough framed for the people who are worried about pornography generally. You're looking at about 10,000 websites, and there's a lot more of that kind of material online. But it's far too broadly drawn for people who are worried about civil liberties and about trespassing on political issues like euthanasia and so on, that would also go behind the filter. For the sort of concerns that you have and that many people share, you need a filter in the home that's actually blocking much broader categories of material than the government was proposing.
Christopher Pyne.
Well, actually, I tend to agree with Scott. I think the problem with the government's internet filtering proposal is that it gave people false comfort that they could introduce an internet filter and that somehow that would solve all of these problems, and it won't. It's almost impossible with the internet to achieve what the government claimed it was going to be able to achieve. And I think what the Howard government did, and I think what a coalition government would do, I hope, is try and address the issue at the individual circumstance. Now, schools have very good filters that they use every day to protect year 11s and 12s who use, or 10s or 9s or whatever is using the internet on a constant basis. Homes have been able to do that through net nanny and so forth. I've got 4 children under 10, and we obviously have security on our home computers which stop them from being able to use certain keywords to attract some of these very unattractive kinds of sites. I think that is probably a better way to go.
Yes, but
I think the debate is not over on it.
Aren't going to put filters on their home computers, Christopher. That's the problem.
No, well, that is true, but you know, trying to address the kinds of people that are going to be involved in child molestation and sexual exploitation is not going to be addressed by having an internet filter. It will be addressed by going to the core of why that is a problem in the first place. And that means addressing social disadvantage and means addressing and educating people from the earliest stage rather than, as our questioner says, trying to deal with it well and truly after the horse is bolted.
OK, let's hear from the government. You want to defend the internet filter even though you've delayed it for a year?
I will defend it. I've defended it to my 18-year-old son, and he doesn't like it. But the problem is that we remain committed to trying to filtering out this filth. We remain absolutely committed to it. We want to try and protect people from that sort of content. The trick is, how do you do it? And what we've done is we've sought to review the material that's classified, because we've had a lot of feedback that it's catching material that it should not catch. And as I say, my son and people of his generation are very concerned that they're not going to be able to access information which they think is suitable, and I accept it's suitable, that would be caught by the filter. So the Minister announced that he'd review that to try and make sure we weren't capturing material that didn't need to be captured. But the gentleman's point's right. I mean, we've got to try and protect people from some of this terrible stuff that's on the internet. And while people say everything's not a perfect solution, we're not going to stop trying because it's not a perfect solution.
It's not a solution at all. Can we just come back to Lou's question? We've seen a former child protection agent from the Australian Federal Police who used to run the High Tech Crime Centre when it was called that, the AFP, who's come out again today and said the filter's not going to work and we're draining resources off. Some of the issues that you're raising are law enforcement questions, whether they're online or offline. And we are draining resources away on a filter that the industries and many others have been telling the Minister won't work for more than 2 years, and draining some of the other very good initiatives that this government, and to its credit, the former government came up with. We're drawing down resources from those sort of things.
But surely with something as abhorrent as child pornography, it's worthwhile trying to do both things, law enforcement and a filter if it can be made to work. And if it doesn't work properly, then surely that's not an argument to abandon it, it's an argument to get it to work properly. And as I understand it, haven't the 3 largest ISPs now voluntarily said that they're going to block the blacklisted child pornography sites? So to the extent that they're doing it, that must work in the interim.
OK, now I'm going to draw a line under it there. This is Q&A, the program that gives you the chance to answer the questions. The next